It's about becoming a multi-planet species, maybe one day becoming a multi-stellar species. And that sounds crazy to some people. That's why I do this, because I don't want to see us being here locked on this planet 1,000 years from now.
Hey, Space Watchers, and welcome to another episode of our Space Cafe Radio from the 41st Space Symposium here in the wonderful Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. And I'm having the great honor today to speak with Marshall Smith, the CEO of Starlab Space. Welcome, Marshall.
Thank you, and it's an honor to meet you as well.
So we sat down in Bremen in 2018 when you were wiring together SLS, Orion, and the Gateway at NASA. A long time ago, many dreams ago. You told me previously that the goal was open architecture, international partnerships, commercial economy. Now you're building that. How does it feel to be on the other side?
It's actually awesome. I really enjoyed my time at NASA. Fantastic Artemis II flight. Couldn't have gone better. Really excited for NASA and the team. And as you said, I was very involved in a lot of that as well. I've always been very commercial at heart. When I was even with NASA, I spent a lot of time kind of pushing the system. Let's go faster. Let's do things better. Let's do things differently. Do we really need those requirements? Those types of things. Spent a lot of time doing that. And getting out in commercial gives me an opportunity to really energize that. And all the things I told you back in, whenever it was 2018, you said, yeah, I really believe
I see in Bremen.
Yeah, yes. Oh, it was 2018, yes. And all those things I told you, I really meant, because that is the future. NASA went in this turning over, doing the hard things is what NASA is about, going to the moon, going to Mars, going beyond. But we've been in low Earth orbit we've had space stations as a world for the last 54 years. There's been 7 instantiations of space stations. The ISS has been on orbit permanently crewed for more than 2 decades. So these are all very big, very complex things, but we've learned a lot. And so now's the time, and has been the time, to turn over low Earth orbit to commercial enterprise, building things with high technology readiness levels that are already out there, things that have been designed and built and we know very well. So it is truly exciting to do that and to take these standards and these things that have been developed over a long time and apply them and then turn that into a commercial enterprise.
You told me earlier that remove as many barriers to participation as possible was one of the goals of your work. Now you're one facing these barriers. Has your perspective changed?
No, I think obviously we want governments to do that, to remove barriers to actually moving up into space. How do we do those things? There's a lot of regulatory things that need to be worked out still. Those things are obviously important. There's things like indemnification, other things like that need to be worked through, and they're being worked through right now. But I think the standards that were developed over the last few years have been very helpful. We can follow a docking standard. If everybody just follows the docking standard, then it works. Power standards, communication standards, those types of things. So we want commercial to be enabled by that, because the more commonality we have, the more we can work together. So I can go competitively and go get a transportation system for cargo among a number of suppliers, or the same for crew eventually, those types of things.
Let's talk about the status of Starlab and the urgency that we see. If I'm not mistaken, you had CDR with NASA done in December. Where does Starlab stand right now?
We have been in development. We won a contract close to 5 years ago now, 4 years ago for sure. And we have been designing and developing. We moved through CCDR, Commercial Design Review, Critical Design Review. We are in manufacturing. We're building hardware. All our long lead items are in process, as well as building the structures themselves. They're in process as well. We're moving out. Typically, it takes a complex space vehicle roughly 6 to 8 to 10 years, depending upon what kind of vehicle it is. We're 5 years into that path. If you count some of the pre-work that we did before the proposal, probably 6 years into that path. Yeah, we've got to go build it. And there are some that say, well, we haven't hit the hard part yet. But we believe that we know what we're doing. We have the capability. We have the experience. Our team is built of the same people who built SLS and Orion and the ISS. For example, Airbus in Germany is one of our major partners who built a large part of the ISS. Same's true for MDA. One of our partners built the Canada arm that is on the ISS, and other arms as we move forward in the future. Mitsubishi, Japan, built through their companies, built parts of the ISS with the Kibo module and resupply systems like HGVX. There's a whole host of people and players that we have that have done this before. So we know what we're going into, eyes wide open.
Yesterday on Sunday before the Space Symposium, there was a roundtable, a congressional roundtable, and that was coming back to urgency. So the ISS retires 2030-ish. China's space station is operational. So how real is the gap risk?
I think the gap risk is very real. The International Space Station is a fantastic piece of equipment. I think in the ignition presentation that NASA put out a couple of weeks ago, they spent some time talking about it, and you can go back and listen to it. They talked about how it's aging, how a lot of the equipment is obsolete, hard to get replaced, those types of things. As we all know, there are leaks, those are well known. So there's no telling when it will. We would like it to extend to 2030, maybe even 2032, but there's no way to know for sure whether that will be the case. And that's a real risk. And so we've been working very hard, all us and as well as our competitors, if you will, have been working very hard on building and getting commercial space stations ready to go. The goal is our launch is 2029. So we think we're going to be there before that time ends.
If I understood your structure correctly, you're fully focusing on launching on a Starship. Is there any plan B?
So when you look at Starship, it's already been to orbit. That's all we need to do. We're not going to the moon. We're not going to land on the moon. We need to go to the orbit and deploy. I think they'll be on version 7 by the time we launch. So I'm not particularly worried about that approach.
Let's talk about money. The roundtable was very blunt. Certainty of funding matters more than the size of the check. How important is that government demand signals for unlocking private capital? That's a discussion we have in Europe as well.
It's extremely important. If you look at what's been raised across all of the providers, it's probably close to $3 billion that has been raised. And I think NASA has put in about a quarter of that money, maybe 20% of that money so far. So the market interest is obviously there if you have all these private investors, but that is before there's actually even been a commitment to a particular one or two or three particular vendors. And I think once you get those commitments, you're going to see a lot of secondary investors who are waiting for that to come in because the market opportunity is real. And matter of fact, there's an RFI that went out from NASA, request for information, that I think all of the providers are turning in to say, yes, the market is real. We have real customers, real multi-year contracts and reservations. We think that the time is right.
You mentioned before Airbus, Mitsubishi, MDA, Palantir are 5 countries in one joint venture. Is that multinational structure your answer to the funding?
In part, we are a joint venture. Starlab is actually a joint venture with majority shareholder Voyager, but Mitsubishi, Airbus, Palantir, Space Applications Solutions, etc. These are all partners with other investors as well. But what that does is we're recreating the ISS partnership at a commercial and business level. And Germany, for example, or Europe or Japan can actually, instead of writing a check to a U.S. company, which U.S. doesn't want to write a check to a foreign company as well, same way, they work within their own area, and then we pool our resources and make those things work. So they provide, say, an HTDX module, or they provide hardware and services from Germany, those types of things. So that allows countries to invest in companies that are in their countries, and then they can work together under this joint venture.
Let's come back to the risk mitigation. So what does a continuing resolution or a shutdown actually cost you when you're building hardware on a fixed deadline?
So certainly changes in the signaling does impact everybody, obviously. And we're hopeful that NASA will make a quick decision and move quickly in the next month or two based on the results of this RFI, and they'll make some decisions, and then we can all adjust and move forward accordingly as quickly as possible.
Let's talk about this international partner setting. Starship has its subsidiary in Bremen and partners, as mentioned, with 5 countries in total. But the roundtable flagged the ITAR situation, MTCR as real blockers are in international collaboration. So how does that friction hit your programs? Or you're building it all here, so ITAR is not an issue?
Oh, no. Certainly ITAR dealing with international, we're building complex systems that have international. So ITAR and EAR information certainly is something we have to deal with and work closely with our partners. Some things that we can't do overseas, but those are relatively limited. Commerce Department, for example, updated its MML munitions list. that defines what's ITAR and what's not recently and those types of things. So that has been helpful as well. There are ways to do that. And of course, we set up agreements and regulations with various countries. And so we've worked through that. And we have Airbus and Mitsubishi and other companies very involved in what we're doing and engaged.
What is, or how would you define Starlab's role? Commercial space station as a soft power gateway, open for partnerships with countries, maybe even not ready for defense ties, but open to science. So how do you leverage that?
Yeah, so Starlab, our concept is a little different than, say, the ISS and some of the other providers. Our goal is not to build one station, then build a bunch of modules and just keep adding modules to it. So Starlab itself, the first one, is more focused around science and research because that's pretty much the market right now. And then, of course, we're going to move into commercialization of this beyond what ISS is capable of doing, move into commercialization of products and those types of things and manufacturing. Starlab 2, Starlab 3, Starlab 4 will be focused more on manufacturing for particular things as the market takes off, national security. There's all kinds of opportunities to go do that. And then you can build multiple copies of these much cheaper. You can put them in their own inclination and those types of things as desired by the customer. So that's probably the biggest difference. So we focus right now on science technology. We focus on crew and payloads that have been more traditional. We have a large amount of that capability devoted to commercial, just pure commercial. For example, Starlab unit itself is designed around that, and therefore we were able to put a lot more research into the vehicle. So even though we're about 40% of this pressurized volume of the ISS, we have 100% of the payload capacity. And we actually have more external payload capacity than the ISS does. And from that, we already have reserved some amount for NASA, ESA, JAXA, the standard amount of capability and facilities and those types of things. That part's reserved. And then we reserve a large chunk, about half of the ISS capability for commercial. And we're already almost 140% reserved. And that was before any announcements were made about the direction. So we're still seeing customers come in demanding to sign up, those types of things. So we see the commercial side as really important. And that's where you're going to see the exponential growth over time.
So you mentioned the outside capacities of Starlab. So it's a Bartolomeo 2.0 version.
Basically, that's exactly right. You're talking anywhere from 200 kilograms to we can actually put up multi-ton systems on the exterior.
Coming back to the science question, we see these days, driven by the politics, by the international demand, dual use is on high. Is dual use part on the science side, or are you saying, no, we don't go that far?
Absolutely. We're interested in that.
Okay.
Yeah, so for sure.
Mitsubishi, one of the partners, didn't just invest their pre-purchase capacities and joined the board. Is that a model going forward? Equity partners who are also customers?
We're open to that. Obviously, we like that. An equity partner being a customer is probably advantageous for the equity partner itself to also be a customer. But we have people engaged in our enterprise that want to be engaged in operating in space. I think that's really important. And when they're also equity partners, they have something at stake as well.
Coming back to our conversation 8 years ago, and you've been in the NASA job, that was also to stimulate the economy, the commercialization. In that, in a very early stage, we have to be on. Starlab is now talking about full-scale manufacturing in orbit. So what does that look like concretely to foster the economy to manufacture in orbit?
I think the initial Starlab that we put up will be doing some manufacturing, depending upon the areas. There's semiconductor manufacturing, as well as we've always talked about fiber optics and those types of things. But I think semiconductors, biopharma, pill manufacturing, those types of things. We have a concept which is proprietary that we can't really talk about, whereby we'll enable manufacturing in a much easier pace, much faster pace on orbit. And that's all great. But we think that's going to grow to the point that it's not going to be able to be accomplished with just one Starlab. We think that companies will see the huge value and be major investors in a second Starlab that's devoted around manufacturing. Maybe it's a shared biopharma manufacturing unit. Maybe it's a single one because a company is willing to. The amount of money that's in the medical industry and semiconductor industry is humongous. And so can some of these companies afford to buy their own? They could, if it was the payback was there, and I think they're going to find out that it is, and they believe it could be there.
What I picked up, you spoke earlier about multiple Starlabs, and just recently said, hey, they might have different colors, different orientations. So what is the planning for that? Can you give us a bit of an outlook? Is it once a year or so, or what is the capacity you even can build out those?
Yeah, so we can build, once we get one of these going, we can build one pretty quick.
Define quick in a space context.
I'll leave it as a year or two.
Okay, good point.
So we can basically build a copy of what we're doing quick. That's probably a year-ish, 2 years kind of thing. If somebody wants to make major changes because I want to do some things, then we have to make some adjustments. But you're probably talking 2 to 3 at that point. Probably not much longer than that.
Does the Starlab revenue model close without NASA as a major customer?
We always have said we believe NASA and the governments to be primary customers. NASA's anchor customer, and I think that's important. There's no space industry in existence today that I can think of that started off without the government being a major customer. Just doesn't work. It has to start that way. And that's actually true in many industries on the ground as well. It is really important that NASA, JAXA, ESA continue the work that they're doing, that they were doing in the ISS, and just be a paying customer, pay for what they use as they move forward. It would be one thing if you were saying NASA's not interested in doing anything in space at all, but that's not true. So the reality is that to have that question as you asked it doesn't make sense because NASA's going to continue to do that. And we're saying just pay for what you were going to use, not more. You pay the same rates as everybody else.
One question that I'm asking during the Space Symposium here, all my guests, is around Artemis 2. You alluded to that at the beginning of our conversation. So what did Artemis 2 mean for you personally? And where do you see the impact for the generations to come?
Personally, since I was involved in Artemis 1, Artemis 2, and getting this program, I was very happy to see it go so well. I was very excited. And I think in my mind, this is a signal to the world. Yes, we are sending humans back to space, to live in deep space, to live on the surface of the moon. We're going to build moon bases. We're going to go to Mars. I think all of these things are important. To me, personally, it's about becoming a multi-planet species, maybe one day becoming a multi-stellar species. And I know that sounds crazy to some people. That's why I do this, because I don't want to see us being here locked on this planet 1,000 years from now. Where humans are built to explore. If you didn't want to explore, you could say, oh, I'll just watch videos of going to Disneyland or Disney World. I don't need to go myself. Because some people say, oh, we don't need to go. We'll just send robots. Reality is that we need to move out. We as a human spirit want to explore, want to be there, want to engage and build a society that's an exploring society. So those are the things personally to me.
I thought you just were talking about the 99% of humanity that doesn't want to move and doesn't want to explore as well. So that's what I was hearing.
Oh, no. I think it's a human nature to explore and want to see the world and see other worlds and move on. And this is the beginning. We're talking, this is back to when in the 1400s when we were exploring, oh, what if we cross this big body of water? What will we find? And it accelerates. And now here we are today. Now we're saying, okay, let's cross this big void of vacuum. What will we find? We'll be on the moon. How will we take it to the next level? And then Mars, and then beyond.
Anything you want to add to our conversation?
No, we're just very excited about the future and about the changes that you will see in society. I say this and I'll say it again, and it's probably been used before, but in 2007, somebody built a platform called an iPhone. And when you got it, it had free cell, a few games, and didn't even do FaceTime. And now you can't walk around without your phone because it's a platform that allows innovation and allows new things to be created and new ideas. And so that's what these CLDs are. They're platforms that I'm convinced that 10 years from now, or 10 years, particularly 10 years after they've been in operation, you're going to see things that you would have never imagined. You're going to see, maybe be able to order a heart that is to replace your heart that is tuned to your DNA because it can be printed in space that you can't do on the Earth, those types of things. You're going to see semiconductors that are going to become the seed material that's built in space that can make everything that we use run more capable, lower power, lower heat, faster processing times. Could be everywhere. This could change our economy. And I would hate for us to give up on that or pause that because we want to do different things.
Marshall, thank you very much for your time and for this conversation. I wish you good luck here at the Space Symposium and, of course, with Starlab and make it fly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much and enjoy being here.
Thank you. With that, Space Watch out. If you like these or other episodes of Space Cafe Radio, leave us a rating on your preferred podcast platform. It is the currency of today. And if you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Torsten Kriening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.